Yeah, well, I mean, two things to say here. Firstly, we've given the French £130 million since 2015, right? So, Monsieur Darmignon, £130 million has been given already, and 54 was the last batch that Priti Patel offered. It seems the more we send them, the more they send us, but hey. So you know, he really is misinterpreting that. And there was a piece of stunning footage doing the rounds on social media of a boat with 40 men running down a beach and 8 gendarmes standing on that beach. It's a beach quite near Calais. And the defence of the French police is they were outnumbered. Goodness gracious me, the police are always outnumbered in any activity they ever undertake.
Well, there was that video, and there was also a guy who'd actually come across on a boat and was interviewed and asked whether or not there were any French police trying to stop them.
He said that the police had watched it happening. Well, I was down on the Kent coast yesterday, and this is what I saw. This was late afternoon, and here's the most extraordinary thing. Most of these launches from France, not all of them, because the first call out yesterday for the Dungeness lifeboat was at 1:30 yesterday morning. There was an emergency call this morning at 3 o'clock. The phone went this morning, and Dover lifeboat went out. There was a boat with 49 on this morning that was taking water. All 49 have been saved, some of them not particularly well. It's amazing that no real big tragedies have happened. But the real thing that gets my goat about this idea, the money we're giving to the French is being used, is most of these vessels are taking off in broad daylight on big, open, sandy beaches. Have a look at what I saw on Dungeness Beach yesterday.
Another typical day in Kent. Yes, here comes the lifeboat, as you can see, ram full, another rib behind it, another rib up on the beach over there that came in earlier, which you may be able to see. I said earlier this year it'd be 20,000, I'm wrong. It's going to be 30,000. Next year, 50 or 60,000. For all those hollow words that Boris Johnson and Priti Patel's at the Tory party conference last week, it all means nothing. This is going to get worse and worse. In fact, it could finish up like the Mediterranean.
Yeah, the intelligence I've got. So this year has seen a change. There are a different kind of boat being used. They're about 36 feet in length.
Yeah, which is much bigger than the boats being
much
used previously.
Bigger. And I think the record number in one of those boats was 83.
Gosh.
But we're now told, good intelligence, we're told to start preparing for boats that can take 200. And I meant what I said there. You know, unless something happens here, this could finish up like the Mediterranean. And I mean, this was yesterday. I mean, look at these scenes. Engine breakdown. I mean, you know, as it was very calm yesterday morning. I mean, pretty astonishing footage. There are people coming over in kayaks. I mean, the whole thing's extraordinary. But there's one thing, I'm going to put it to you guys, one thing where I think the French are right. This is predominantly our fault, because you can come across from, it doesn't matter where you come from, you can come from anywhere in the world. Over 90% of those that come are young men, mostly with very expensive iPhones and very nice Nike trainers. And they can come to this country. They will immediately be put into quite a nice 4-star hotel, 3 meals a day, free dental care, free health care. I mean, they get to see GPs. Many in Britain don't even get to do that. 38 quid a week spending money. And that's just to begin with. And not a single person has been deported so far this year. So the pull factors to come to the UK are very, very big. And, you know, Priti Patel, Boris at the conference did talk about this. At the moment, from what I can see, this will get worse. And this is putting a lot of pressure on communities in this country. And it's also in your part of the world, particularly up in the north of England, it's rising up the political agenda. Completely. In terms of things that concern people. So,
well, I get emails on this issue daily. Every single day without fail, I have multiple emails coming in about how we're going to tackle the small boat crossings. It's a really difficult one. I mean, on the one hand, there is a huge responsibility on the French to stop these boats from leaving in the first place. And I personally feel like they are completely neglecting their responsibility. Yeah. You know, we're trying to do good, proactive joint working with them. The fact we're handing money over to another nation's government to try and help tackle this issue and we're not seeing results, I think, is really shameful. And it's really difficult. We can't really turn these boats back. It's not the same sort of boats they had in Australia where they were strong and sturdy. A lot of these, as you said, Nigel, are rubber dinghies. If we try and turn them back and they capsize, people end up in the water, we surely have a human responsibility to rescue people.
Well, but equally, we have a human responsibility to stop the boats coming. As I said, 49 people this morning in very real trouble.
Yes.
We don't know how many have died making these crossings. I do suspect more than we know about.
And if I may address one of your earlier points about the sort of environment people face when they come to Britain, it's absolutely right that for genuine asylum seekers and genuine refugees that we have a really humane system where they are, well looked after until their claim is proved successful, at which point they're given a chance to build a life here in the UK. I mean, I don't think any of us can really deny that that is the right thing to do. But the problem is, if someone is landing on our shore, you can't, by looking at them, make an instant determination about whether or not they're genuinely fleeing for their own safety. Yeah. So they have to be brought into the system, they have to be put up and housed, they have to be fed. It's absolutely the right thing to do. But that's why we're bringing in this new Nationality and Borders Bill, to try and make the system more robust so that people coming here illegally could face prison time, where massive more time for people smugglers. At least we're trying to do something, Nigel, within the constraints of
I think the problem is...
They just promised.
This is the thing, Deanna. I think the problem is that those promises have been made so often over the years and people can't really see any difference. And I think the sad thing, as I said on the programme when we discussed it a few weeks ago, that actually immigration was actually becoming a non-issue in this country. 20 years ago, it had been a running sore before that, as we know, back in the 60s and 70s, but it was becoming a non-issue. Because I think people generally had faith in the system, and then all of a sudden with the impacts of free movement in the EU and EU enlargement, etc., that faith in the system was broken, and then with the channel crossings even more so. And no self-regarding country, in my view, can allow a situation, whatever sympathy you have with human beings trying to make a better life for themselves. I have enormous sympathy for anyone who wants to try to make a better life for themselves and their families. But, Britain can't allow hundreds, potentially thousands of people turning up on its shores every day undocumented. That is simply not a sustainable
And there's a security element too. I mean, it's Arlene, you've held senior political position as a former First Minister of Northern Ireland. Let's just for one moment imagine that you're in charge of all of this. What would you do?
Well, I wouldn't be sending £56 million to the French government, that's for sure.
Good answer.
It's absolutely astounding that they have the gall to say this is dreadful, you haven't sent us the money, while walking along the beach whilst people come across. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And I think, again, I think it's an indication of what's happening in France. You've already talked about the fact that immigration is a huge problem in France, particularly in southern France. They're now having to deal with that politically because that's coming to the fore in their election. And therefore, they're not interested in working with us. They're quite glad that people are leaving France and coming across to the UK. And we're having to deal with that. And I think it's completely unacceptable and it needs to be called out time and time again.
Well, we do now have a new minister who is appointed in the reshuffle. Tom Pursglove has been appointed with not quite sole responsibility, but one of his major jobs is going to be tackling this. I've had a few conversations with him now since he came into post. He's going to be bringing the Nationality and Borders Bill through Parliament starting in the first week back. And I think we can all wish him luck in trying to tackle this really difficult of issues. I
like Tom Pursglove. I mean, he was in the last Parliament was the youngest Tory MP, and I was with him on the Brexit campaign. And Tom, you're very brave. Accepting this job is all I can say.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.